Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today, we're diving into the fascinating world of Spring Boot to explore how a request travels from a client to the server and back. If you've ever wondered what happens behind the scenes when you hit an API endpoint, this video is for you. We'll break down each step of the process using a detailed flowchart. So, grab a coffee, and let's get started. It all begins with the client. Imagine yourself browsing a website, using an app, or simply scrolling through Instagram. Picture this: you're watching Reels, and a loading icon pops up as new content loads. At that moment, your app sends a request to Instagram to fetch the data, something like a GET request to https://instagram.com API get new Reels. Actual URL can be different. This request is packaged as an HTTP request object and sent off to the server. While Instagram might use a different technology, this flow is similar to how Spring Boot handles requests, and that's what we'll explore today. Now, let's talk about what happens after the request leaves your phone or browser. It enters the magical world of the internet, the network layer. Imagine you're sending a letter. You write the address as localhost or maybe Instagram.com, but the internet doesn't really understand names, it understands numbers. So, just like the post office uses a PIN code, your app uses something called DNS to turn that name into an IP address. Once that's done, a connection is made. Think of it like a highway opening up between your device and the server. This is called a TCP/IP connection, and it's what makes sure your request reaches the right server, just like your letter reaching the right house. Alright, so the request finally makes it to the server. Now what? It's like arriving at a company's front desk. Spring Boot has a receptionist waiting there. That's Tomcat, the embedded servlet container, usually hanging out on port 8080. Tomcat picks up the request and says, "Okay, you're here for this service," and sends it to the right servlet, kind of like sending you to the right department in an office. That servlet is ready to process the request and get things moving. Now comes the real boss of the Spring MVC flow, DispatcherServlet. Think of it like the manager standing at the center of all request handling in your Spring Boot app. Thanks to Spring Boot's auto-configuration magic, this front controller is already set up and ready to go, handling every single request that enters the system. Once the request reaches DispatcherServlet, it doesn't just process it blindly. It says, "Let me check who's responsible for this," and hands it over to HandlerMapping. HandlerMapping is like a smart assistant. It checks the URL, the HTTP method, like GET or POST, and any path variables to figure out which controller method should handle the request. If it can't find a match, the request is politely routed to the basic error controller, which sends back a proper error response, maybe a JSON error message or an HTML error page. But if it does find a match, great. We move forward. Now we know which method should handle this, but we still need to prepare the method's inputs. That's where argument resolvers step in. Think of them as the kitchen prep crew. They gather all the ingredients the method needs: path variables, query parameters, request body data, and get everything ready. It's like prepping your veggies, spices, and oil before you start cooking. Once everything's in place, it's time for the handler adapter to jump in. This is the actual chef who knows how to cook the dish. In Spring Boot, the most common one is the request mapping handler adapter, and it knows exactly how to call methods that are mapped to URLs using annotations like @getMapping, @postmapping, and so on. The handler adapter brings everything together: the controller, the arguments, and the context, and finally calls the method. Boom! The request is now being handled by your controller. As soon as the request comes to the controller, it doesn't do the heavy work itself. It simply says, "Hey service layer, get me what I need." Think of it like the app saying, "Fetch the next reel," without knowing how it's chosen or where it comes from. Now the service layer gets to work. This is where the real thinking happens, checking what kind of reel you might like next, filtering out ones you've already seen, and applying some business logic. In Spring Boot, this would be things like validation, calculations, or coordinating actions, the actual brain of the system. But even the service layer doesn't hold the data. To fetch it, it calls the repository layer, the part that talks directly to the database. This is like Instagram reaching into its storage to pull up the actual video file or metadata for the next reel. Once the data is ready and everything's processed, the response starts making its way back. Spring checks what type of response the controller gave. Is it a view name, or an object like a user or a post? If it's an object with that response body, Spring converts it to JSON using its message converters, so your app can understand it. And just like that, the next reel appears on your screen, smooth, fast, and seamless. That's exactly how Spring Boot sends your final response back to the client, completing the whole request-response journey. And there you have it, the full behind-the-scenes tour of a Spring Boot request, from that tiny client click all the way to a clean JSON response. If this video helped simplify the chaos of backend magic, smash that like button so YouTube knows it's worth sharing. Want more tech explained like this, clean, simple, and no BS? Then subscribe right now and turn on the bell icon, so you don't miss the next drop. We've got more Spring Boot, system design, real-world project breakdowns, and dev career tips coming up, and trust me, you don't want to miss them. Until then, keep building, keep learning, and I'll see you in the next one.